Hello everyone, welcome. You may or may not be aware that I was a freelance makeup artist for more than 20 years before I started this YouTube channel around 2014, 2015. But I would put up a video maybe once a month because I was still working as a freelance makeup artist. And about 2 years into my YouTube career, I gave up freelance work in order to focus on my YouTube channel full time. Obviously, as a beauty content creator, I spend a lot of time trying out new products. And every once in a while, I find myself thinking, if this product had been around when I was working as a professional freelance makeup artist, I definitely would have had it in my kit. So what I'm going to be sharing with you in this video is 20 of those products that were not available when I was a professional freelance makeup artist. But if I were to create a pro kit now, they would be in there. Now, I want to make myself perfectly clear. These are not the only products that I would have in my pro kit. And I also would like you to keep in mind that when a professional makeup artist is putting their kit together, they're really looking to consolidate as much as possible. So if you've looked inside any professional makeup artist's kit, you've probably seen a lot of palettes, usually custom palettes. A lot of makeup artists would depot blush. No makeup artist wants to carry around 20 different bottles of foundation. So what most do is transfer a smaller amount of foundation into a plastic container, which we would typically buy at a pro makeup supply store. But there are incidences where we want to take the product in its packaging. When I personally was choosing products to put in my kit, I would tend to avoid really bulky products that took up a lot of space, had a lot of unnecessary packaging. So what I'm trying to say is that aside from the quality of these products and the performance, I also take into consideration how travel friendly they are, how kit friendly they are. I think I'm going to start with brushes. First up is the Makeup by Mario F4 brush. I was really late to the party with this. People were raving about this for a good year to 2 years before I purchased my own. This brush is worth every penny. I use this side to apply foundation, and then I use the other side to apply cream blush. You can also use this to blend out cream bronzer. You can use it to blend out concealer. It's a little big to use to blend out concealer, but it wouldn't be impossible to do with this. This brush is super soft. I've washed mine several times and I haven't had any issues with a lot of fallout. I would honestly have at least 2 of these in my kit. Then there's this Patrick Ta dual-ended nose contour brush. This brush will make you a nose contour pro. As you can see on one end, it has this sort of fanned shape, which makes it perfect for applying cream contour or powder contour to the nose. And then on the other side, it looks like an eyeshadow brush. And you can obviously use this as an eyeshadow brush. But what this does is it diffuses the nose contour so it's not harsh. Even I struggle sometimes with making my nose contour look natural, especially when I'm on camera. Even now, I feel like maybe it's too strong. And then for that nose contour, I would pop this little guy into my pro kit. It's from Makeup Forever, and it is the Artist Sculpt Powder in Marvelous Peanut. I'm sure most of you are aware that Makeup Forever was originally a pro artist brand. It wasn't widely available in stores like Sephora. Back then, you did have to go to a professional makeup supply store to get Makeup Forever. So because this brand is for makeup artists, they really understand undertones and offering a variety of undertones to suit whatever the skin tone is of the client sitting in your chair. So this is the shade that I personally use, but I would probably purchase 2, even 3 other shades of this product because I do think it is fantastic. It is one of the most natural looking contour powders and longest lasting contour powders you can buy. And then, like I was saying, this brush makes it so easy. I also like to take the nose contour and sort of blend it into my crease, tie everything together. Yeah, this is a great brush and this is a great contour powder. Speaking of powders, I'm trying to think of what powder, loose powder, I used to have in my kit back then. But again, if I were building my kit today, the 2 powders I would 1000% have in there now would be the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Pressed Powder and the Kimchi Chic Puff Puff Pass. I've been using the Charlotte Tilbury powder for years. The Kimchi is more of a recent discovery, but both are extremely blurring. They make your skin look so smooth and take down excess shine. For the most part, when I would do people's makeup, it was for an event. They were either a bride or they were in a wedding. When I first moved here to Las Vegas, a lot of my clients were people who were just going out for the night and just wanted their makeup done, or perhaps it was a bachelorette party. All of these are occasions where you might be dancing, you might be sweating a little bit, you might just be getting a little bit more shiny / glowy than normal. So having a powder that does absorb oil is really helpful. And this powder specifically is going to give you a very airbrushed look. It's not like powders of 10, 15, 20 years ago. They weren't as finely milled, they weren't as silky, they weren't as light on the skin. They definitely enhance texture a lot more. So I truly think that even those with mature skin would be hard pressed to not be able to find a loose powder that suited them. Okay, next up, foundation. As I mentioned earlier, I would not be taking full bottles with me, but I would decant these into a smaller container. And these are the new Tier Mask Fit Liquid Foundation. I dedicated an entire video to this foundation. I did an all-day wear test, and this is honestly one of the best foundations I have ever tried. Granted, the shade selection is good. It's just very difficult to pick your shade online. I have 2 here. Neither are perfect for me, but when you're a makeup artist, you do a lot of blending. So if I were working on a client, it wouldn't matter if this wasn't the perfect shade for her. I could mix in however many other shades I wanted to. The shades I have right now are 22N Shell Beige and 28N Oat. And all I can say is that I love everything about this foundation, from the texture to the finish to the longevity. Aside from the difficulty I think people will have getting their correct shade, the only other fault I can find with this foundation is that it does oxidize. It oxidizes about a shade darker. However, knowing that, I would obviously keep that in mind when I was applying it to a client. It also has a slight fragrance to it, which I know is off-putting to some people. So I should say there's 2 other faults I find with it. But I don't mind it. I personally think it smells very clean and fresh, but I can see how some people might not want that in their foundation. When I was freelancing, the liquid foundations that I kept in my kit were the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk, as well as the MAC Studio Fix Fluid, the original version. Then I would also have foundations for people with really sensitive skin. I think at the time I kept Bare Minerals and possibly Jane Iredale in my kit for those clients who told me they were very sensitive to foundations or to fragrances and wanted something that was just 100% mineral. When it comes to concealers, I would keep the Natasha Denona High Glam in there, as well as the Kulfi Main Match Concealer. And then I would probably still have my NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer in there. That was simply my go-to concealer for many, many years. There were not nearly as many brands available at the time I started my makeup career in 1996. We probably have double the amount of brands available now than we did then. I didn't start freelancing until like 1998, and then I freelanced for 1 year in Atlanta, Georgia. Then I moved back to Michigan, worked at a couple of counters, and then went back to freelancing. And then when I moved here to Las Vegas in 2013, I started freelancing again. The point I'm trying to make is that there are so many fantastic concealer options right now, but in my opinion, these are 2 of the best for coverage, for wear, for hydration, for brows. The Ravi everyday brow pencils. This is my new favorite brow pencil. Well, it's been my favorite for about 2-3 months now. I am a sucker for a very fine tipped eyebrow pencil. The finer the better, as long as it doesn't break off. A lot of these really tiny brow pencils have a tendency to, even with light pressure, just sort of break off as you're using it. And that is very frustrating. I have not had that problem with this everyday brow pencil. I love that it has a spoolie on the back. I think a spoolie is very important to brush your brows up before you start, and then to brush your brows up when you've completed your brow routine. The available shades are also very important. How many times have you purchased a brow pencil that said it was soft brown or taupe or blonde or dark brown, and you put it on your brows and it comes up green or red or orange? So the tone of the pencil is very important. And I think Allie Glines, the founder of Revi Beauty, did a fantastic job formulating these shades. And then my favorite brow setting gel of all time is from this brand right here, Bay Brow. You might be thinking, that looks like any other brow wax I can get from e.l.f. or Anastasia Beverly Hills. You would think they were all the same, but they're not. I have tried all of those other variations of waxes that come in containers like this, and this is the only one that actually gets my brows to, first of all, look like natural brow hairs, keep those brows locked in place all day long, and doesn't flake. Up next, blush. I would have every single one of these Patrick Ta blush duos. These duos come in some of the most gorgeous shades possible. I mean, look at that red, hot pink, but there are also very natural duos like Just Enough or She's Flushed. And as you can see, there is a powder blush as well as a cream blush. Between the shade selection, the quality of the product, the very kit-friendly packaging, although I do know some makeup artists actually depot these and put them into a separate palette or two. In the kit that I had, which was on wheels, I remember that I specifically had a place for not these, because again, they didn't exist back then, but a place for palettes this size to sort of stand upright. I would also have these Patrick Ta eye duos. These shimmers are absolutely stunning. If I were still doing makeup for bachelorette parties, I have a feeling that the girls would go absolutely crazy for these shimmers. They look so beautiful in photographs and in the evening light. And now remember I said earlier that most of the products I would keep in my kit would be high end because that's what people like to see and have used on them. Well, I've got to say, I would still, and no, I am not being paid to push Morphe palettes. I feel like at this point I've talked about these Chroma, what are they called? Chroma something eyeshadow palettes. I've spoken about them so much. I'm sure there are people who think that I was given these for free or I'm being paid by Morphe. No, neither of those things are true. I just think these palettes are that good. I did mention in another recent video that I felt like these Morphe palettes were very much on par with the quality of MAC eyeshadows. You're going to get the same pigmentation. You're going to get the same blendability. And MAC eyeshadows are $25 a piece. Back in the day, I did have a MAC Pro card. I had one for, gosh, at least 10 years, maybe 15 years. So I did get 40% off at MAC at the time. So I would normally build a palette using MAC single shadows. But nowadays, you can find so many great pre-made palettes like these. I feel like when I was freelancing, you either could buy separate, singles at MAC or from other brands that did individual eyeshadows, build your own palette, or most brands just had like 4-pan palettes or 6-pan palettes. But I don't recall there being many palettes like these, where you've got 12 high-quality shadows in a combination of finishes. I mean, I honestly think I could live the rest of my life with just these two palettes and a couple of those Patrick Ta shimmer toppers. But in addition to these Morphe palettes, I would also have this Makeup by Mario Master Mattes palette in there. Both the original and the neutrals. Since we're talking about eyes, let's talk about lashes. Most of the time when I would do bridal or event makeup, the bride did want false lashes. Back then it was typically a strip lash. Half lashes really weren't a thing, although I always would trim the lash to fit my client's eye. And I always found individual lashes to look great, but they were very difficult and time consuming to apply. Some makeup artists are great at it and they can pop those lashes on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, easy peasy. I don't know why, but it was never that easy for me. Nowadays, you can get these lash clusters. These particular ones are from Amazon. The days of really big, dramatic lashes, I think are gone. They may come back, who knows? But in 2025, I love the look of just a couple clusters right on the outer edges to give the eye some lift. Of course, applying lashes is very eye shape specific. So I wouldn't do the same thing as an artist on every single person in my chair. I would customize the lashes to suit the client's eye shape. And having these little clusters makes that so much easier and things would go so much faster. All right, another blush formula that I would absolutely have in my makeup kit would be the Rare Beauty Liquid Blushes. You can use these on the cheeks, you can use these on the lips, you can apply them very lightly for a wash of color, or you can really pack it on for an intense blushy look. You get so much bang for your buck with these. I know they recently, well, maybe it wasn't that recent, but I have seen that they now make the majority of the shades in smaller versions because this is pretty much the lifetime supply. I cannot imagine anyone going through a full bottle of Rare Beauty liquid blush before it expired because they are so intensely pigmented. And I know that's a reason some people give for not loving this formula because it is so easy to go overboard with this blush. But if you are very, very careful, not only is the shade selection beautiful, they're long wearing, fade resistant, and work for all skin types. Up next is the NARS Hot Escape Cheek Palette 2. I only purchased one of these when they launched, and I do believe they are limited edition, but if I were a working makeup artist in 2025, I would have purchased all 3 colorways because as a makeup artist, I love a palette like this. And I also love recommending these types of palettes to regular people who aren't makeup artists because who doesn't want more bang for their buck? And in this palette, you get a bronzer, a blush, and 2 highlights, like a blush topper and then a beautiful, beautiful highlighter, which brings me to the highlighters I would add. So I would have this in there because I think it's beautiful, but I would also have these NARS individual highlighters. I've got 2 of them here. One is Electra and the other one is Eros. And then somebody told me that Electra was in this palette and they are correct. Yeah, they are the same. Thankfully, while I did purchase this, these were sent to me in a PR package, so I didn't spend the money on something I didn't need. But the point is that these highlighters are really, really nice. They're extremely silky. I believe they're talc free. I could be wrong, but I think NARS removed the talc from all of their powder products. I've got to say that when I was working as a makeup artist in the early 2000s, NARS products took up a lot of space in my kit. And then when I opened my makeup store in 2007 called About Face, it was in Rochester, Minnesota, across from the Mayo Clinic. My sister and I owned it together. And when we were bringing brands in, we were so excited when NARS said yes to us. So I will always have love for NARS Cosmetics, and I think they just keep striving to improve, and a lot of their products are still so great. And there's a reason why so many makeup artists continue to use this brand. The Dior Backstage Universal Highlight Palette. I'd be willing to bet that if you asked 10 makeup artists, 10 pro makeup artists right now, if they had this in their pro kit, I'm thinking at least 7 of them would say, Yes, these can be used as eyeshadow. Obviously a beautiful highlight. It is what I have on today. I just swirled the white and the gold together. If I'm doing a more pinky look, I'll use the blush shade. This, to me, is not pigmented enough to be used as a blush. I definitely use it more as a highlighter, but it does make a beautiful soft pink, lightly shimmering eyeshadow. And then this bronze does as well. I also like to take this bronze sometimes and run it along the lower lash lines for subtle definition. And this white shade is also the perfect tear duct highlight. And then the final product, I think a lot of you may have guessed that this would be in here. This is the L'Oreal Infallible 3-Second Setting Mist. When I was doing weddings, we had something called Model in a Bottle. And I also sold Model in a Bottle at my boutique. It was my favorite setting spray to use on anyone because it locked everything down. You put that Model in a Bottle on and your makeup was not going anywhere. You know what? I'm curious if it still exists because I certainly don't hear anybody talking about it. Oh yeah, they do. It looks a lot different than it did back then, but oh, they have it on Amazon. I kind of want to try it and compare it to the L'Oreal. But for now, I would have multiple bottles of this. Just like I said, Model in a Bottle did. When you spray your face with this stuff, your makeup is not going anywhere. I'm not sure I would recommend this for someone with extremely dry skin. A lot of times, mature women or those with very dry skin would prefer a more glowing setting spray. I can't think off the top of my head which one I would have in there. Maybe the Makeup by Mario? But even if I didn't use this particular spray to set someone's face makeup, normally a makeup artist is going to put something on the body as well. I always do. Like a lot of people my age, I have sun damage on the chest. So I do like to cover it up with some sort of body makeup. And then I spray generously and I wait 3 seconds and that body makeup does not budge. It does not come off on my clothes. It won't come off on a tissue. So that brings me to the end of 20 products I would add to my professional makeup kit if I were building it today in 2025. These are all products that did not exist when I was freelancing in the 90s and the early to mid 2000s and even into the early days of the 2010s. Once again, these are not the only products I would have in my kit, but they are products that I have used over the past couple of years that I really felt that if I were still doing makeup on clients, I would want to have available. Of course, I will have everything listed and linked down below in the description box, as well as tagged through YouTube Shopping if available. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. If you are not already subscribed to my channel, I do upload new videos at least twice per week. You can also find more content from me over on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok under the same username, Risa Does Makeup. I also now have a second channel called Passport and Pumps dedicated to fashion and travel. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I hope to see you in my next video.